Brown and I'm with the Central Mississippi Regional Library System. Today we are here in the town of Mize, Mississippi with Mr. Brian Easterling. He is the owner of Luckey Customs. He is a blacksmither who makes knives, and he was a champion on the Forged in Fire TV series. So Brian, we just have a few questions we would like to ask you. So when did you get started? Like, how old were you when you started blacksmithing?
I made my first knife at 14 in my ag class at Mize, Mr. Boyce Cole's ag shop. And I've been dabbling with it ever since. But for 10 years now, I've really been, focusing in on honing the craft and, learning all I can and getting myself out there a little bit more.
Okay. I mentioned you were on the Forged in Fire TV show. Did you have to audition for that, or did someone contact you and say, hey, we would like you to be on here?
Yeah, I didn't audition. You can go online and apply, but I never really had any big desire to do that. They contacted me in June of 2019 through email and said that they would be interested in having me apply to be on the show. They followed me on social media, this and that, and so we went from there. I did the application form online, and the process took off from there.
Okay. What was it like with the cameras? I know there was a point where they were just following you around constantly.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like, having them just all over you while you were trying to work? I know I don't like that.
Yeah, it's nerve-wracking because it's not natural, it's not normal, it's not what you do every day, and it adds a lot of extra pressure that you didn't already have. Being in a strange place, doing something you never done before that you never thought you would do. So yeah, the cameras, it's pretty rough.
Okay, I mentioned that you have your Luckey Customs. How did that come about? How did it get its name?
Well, after I sold my very first knife, I never thought I would because I'd made and give away hundreds. I started posting on Facebook, and I saw others, and they all had names for their forge, their smithy, whatever you want to call it. And so I thought, well, I need to do the same. And racked my brain, couldn't think of what I wanted. And, my name is Brian Luckey Easterling. And here where I live in this little community, it's always been known as Luckey Town. My great-grandfather on my dad's side started sawmilling close to 100 years ago. And he had little shotgun houses all around here that folks who worked at the mill could live. Basically rent-free. He just let people live there for working at the mill. And so Luckey Customs, that's where it comes from. The history of the community, the area that I live here, it's pretty rich. Folks that, haven't been around this part for years, they still know this is Luckey Town. And so I thought it was pretty fitting to call my shop, named after my great-grandfather.
I didn't know that they called it that.
Mm-hmm.
So what influences your work? Do you just come up with things, or is it like somebody calls you and says, hey, I want something made out of this?
At this point in the game, because I've gotten into such a business-framed state of mind, the majority of my stuff is, custom ordered based type stuff. So if somebody wants a skinning knife and they give me the dimensions and all this and that, that's what I build. But I do every once in a while get a free moment that I can just be artistic with what I'm doing and let the metal move itself the way it wants to go, and then wind up with what I feel like it wanted to be. Mm-hmm. So it's a little of both, it's just a good mixture of both.
What is the most unique thing you've made? What would you say was the most unique thing that you've made?
Oh goodness, I had a guy, I'm not even sure what it's called. It's medieval. It has a handle about this long with a chain and a spike ball.
The mace?
A mace.
You made a mace.
I made a mace, yes, I've made that. And so as far as, odd, unique, weird, that's probably the most
So that's also the weirdest thing
Yeah,
you made.
that's the
That was
weirdest
my
thing
next
I've
question.
made. That would be the weirdest thing I've made. It was a blast to make. I loved it, and the guy loved it, and so, you know, it was all good in the end. But yeah, it was crazy.
So, have you ever used any odd materials to make a knife or anything, like something that you wouldn't normally use other than maybe metal or wood?
Well, I've used mammoth tooth for handle material. I've used
Where did you get it?
online. hmm
Wow.
Yes, online.
Mammoth tooth
hmm
online.
I've also used giraffe leg foam.
Oh wow.
So, and yeah, you know, I guess it's legal to hunt giraffes in Africa, wherever, and a guy can come with a giraffe leg bone, like that
Wow.
long, and he wanted the handle of his knife made with that.
Oh wow.
So,
How many hours go into making just one knife?
just one knife. One knife can have, it depends on the size of the knife, the details that's going into the knife. I have put up to 80 hours in one knife. But like 2, you know, work weeks worth of hours can go into one knife. And I have had more, you know, or some that's got more hours than that. If you're making something out of Damascus, you know, where you're forming your own steel out of different types of steel, that increases the length of time it takes to get to the final product. So, you know, I have worked on one knife for upwards of what's, you know, as far as days goes, it took me a month. You know, it's not a quick process.
So, do you know of many other knife makers in Mississippi?
In
or-
Mississippi, I do now. You know, before the internet and before Forged in Fire become a big thing on the History Channel, I felt like a lone wolf right here in Mize, you know. But you know, with Facebook and the internet and all that kind of good stuff, you meet other folks. I know several within driving distance that I've been to their shop. We've worked together, collaborated together. The guy that I competed against in the final round on the show is from Leakesville, Mississippi.
Oh, wow.
Great guy. So yeah, I do know several now where I didn't at one time.
So, do you keep up with anybody that you met on the show?
Oh
or-
yes, I'm all 3 Smiths that were on there with me. I'm really good friends with them. Of course, I don't get to see them. One's from Staten Island, and there was a lady on the show. She was from Kentucky. But you know, that's what's so wonderful with the internet. You know, I can keep up with folks like we couldn't at one time. So yeah, I keep up with them a lot. Yeah, pretty regular.
What about the judges? What do you talk to them? Is that something that's
Through social media,
really?
you know, Facebook pages and stuff like that. But as far as personally, like through text message or phone calls, no. You know, it was a 4-day process the first time we went, and you were there focused on what you were doing, and they were there doing what they do. So we didn't interact a whole bunch during the filming. So, and I realized that just like everyone else, they've got their own lives, and so, but now we do communicate through Facebook here and there, you know. And they're all great guys. All of them were really great guys.
Well, can you tell us where to find you on social media? You said you had a Facebook page.
I do have Facebook. My shop's page is, you know, like I said, Luckey Town Customs. You can search Luckey Town Customs and you'll be able to find it. I'm on Instagram under the same name. I'm also on TikTok, and I'm so new to it, I don't know if it's, I think it's B Easterling 61, I
Okay.
believe, but I'm not sure. I also have a web page, a website of my own, and it's Luckey Town Customs, is, you know, luckytowncustoms.com
Okay.
as well.
Okay. Well, that's all the questions that I have right now. Thank you for talking to us. Would you mind giving us a demonstration before we go?
No, not at all. 3 parts. This knife is made out of a farrier's rafts, just like this one. This is one solid piece. I haven't cut anything off of it. This is all forged to shape. Nothing's been done as far as shaping other than grinding my bevels in. Everything, you know, this started its life as this right here. And I sell a ton of rasp blades of all different types, designs, profiles. People love them, you know. And the one thing about working with recycled steel, you have to be really careful because some of them are case hardened and they are no good. So every blade I start with, I do a test on it to see if it's got enough carbon to make a good knife out of it. And these particular rasps right here, I have to quench in water. They won't oil harden. They'll only harden in water. But they make a great knife when they're done.
So will that design stay on that knife, or
Oh,
that'll
yes,
be
ma'am.
buffed out?
Yeah, no, that's there. The only place that it's not is where I've, you know,
Right.
ground in my bevels, you know, bringing it down to get ready for my secondary bevel or my cutting edge. But all this here, once I get it heat treated and all that kind of good stuff, I'll clean all this here up, get all this forge color off of it, and bring it all to this nice, pretty shiny stuff. But you'll still see all those little triangles, and sometimes they wind up looking like dragon scales or snake scales.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
So it's really cool, and folks love it. I've sold many rasp knives. I'm friends with several farriers for that reason, because I have a demand for these.
And that's the knife you're thinking of putting the antler handle?
Yeah, I'm thinking elk. I'm gonna slab it, and you know, I drift. I hot punch or drift my pinholes. I don't particularly like drilling too much, so I'll slab me a elk antler down the middle and attach it with pins and epoxy. And just because it just looks outdoorsy, frontiersy to me, I guess is what I'm thinking. So, and it'll really look better once the handle material gets attached to it. 3 It'll take it a few minutes to get hot enough that we can start moving the metal.
How hot is that?
Ma'am?
How hot is that?
That forge right there will get up to about 2,500 degrees. If I close the back up, I can forge well with that little forge. In other words, that's what I use that little forge for making my Damascus, stacking my steels, and you know, taking 2 pieces of steel and making one. Yeah, it'll get up to 24, 2,500 degrees, which is what you have to be able to forge with. Forging, just regular heat, you know, the temperature you need for hammering, you know, 1,600 degrees, easy. It'll get pretty hot. It's really rough in the summer, especially here in Mississippi, when the summers and the humidity we have. Start out, we're just going to try to start flattening this out a little bit so that we can get us to work on start working on the shape of the blade. starts losing color, you have to go back to the fire. You don't want to move still once it starts getting cold, because then you'll cause it to form stress fractures. And then you'll get to a certain point, you won't see them because they're so small, you can't see them with your eye. And then you'll have a blade breaks on you and quench, or when you're tempering it. And so try not to work at a temperature that's too cool. Once it starts losing the color, we go back to the fire. But you'll notice the thinner you get your steel, the quicker it heats up. Got it flattened out enough for what we're doing here that we're going to start working on creating this tip. We'll do that on the edge of the hammer. Steel we're using is pretty small, so it moves pretty quick. Every knife doesn't move as fast. You have to use a bigger stock. A lot more hammering, which is why I got the power tools. That's how you start your knife. We got the spine, we got our cutting edge. We can refine that tip. We can move on further and start doing the handle, stretching it out. And just progress from there.
So, do you sharpen those once they're at that point, or do you keep doing that?
You do this until you get the shape, the basic shape and profile that you want to at the hammer, at the handle. I try to do as much of the work as I can right here. The more work I do here, the less grinding I have to do, which turns into less money I have to spend on belts and stuff like that. So you don't do your sharpening until after everything is done. Work on your profile, then you clean it up, you do your primary bevels on the sander. Heat treat, which is quenching and tempering, and then attach your handles, and then do your final sharpening. That's usually the last thing you want to do, because the last thing you want to have happen to you is get cut with a sharp blade in the middle of some other part of the process. So. like a butter knife. It's a small stock. There's only so much that you can do with it.
So you're working on the handle now?
Working on getting the handles flat so I can start stretching it to shape. Got the shapes that I'm trying to go for on this little thing, so what I'm doing now is just gonna dress it up a little. Take the horn, and I'm going to create the finger groove where your finger rests. Create that right here. Real quick, real shrewd, but that's the beginnings of me. You could make a parrot knife out of that for the kitchen, you know. Pretty good size for that. For the stock we started with. But that's the basics of hammering a knife. You've got your spine, your cutting edge, and your handle, and there, just that quick, you got the beginnings of a knife.